Hey everybody, this is Josh McKinney, and I just want to welcome you to episode 83 of the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show. Today, I get the opportunity to interview one of my newest black belts. 2 weeks ago, you guys would have heard me interview Eric Keebner for the second time, it was actually right before he got his black belt, but we didn't release it until after. But that same day, I promoted someone else to black belt, and that is my friend Derek Maguire. And what's unique about this, and we'll get very into it in the podcast, is Derek started jiu-jitsu before me, and he was always a belt ahead of me. And he just had a long journey into jiu-jitsu. And I think that you guys, a lot of people that probably even like jiu-jitsu podcasts, will be able to pull something from this in a sense of you have a jiu-jitsu plan. A lot of times I'm talking about what's your jiu-jitsu goal? What are you focused on? What are you trying to get to? And I think this is a really good podcast that shows sometimes those plans change, and they're different than what you expect. And so I won't give too much away on the podcast or about the podcast. We'll just get into it. But before we get into it, if you guys enjoy my content, be sure to try to get it everywhere you can. If you watch on YouTube, you should subscribe to the YouTube channel. You should do whatever else you're supposed to do, comment, say, oh my gosh, this is great. You can also follow me on Instagram, where I post a ton of different technique videos. Probably, I claim every day, but probably more every other day. 2 out of each 3 days, something like that. And I also answer questions, technical questions that people ask, and that is at the Josh McKinney. And finally, I guess that's it. I guess you guys can follow my podcast if you're listening right now on whichever platform that you listen to my podcast, so you can be updated when new episodes come out. So on that note about people that listen, I had quite a few people that listened to the Eric episode and said, oh man, that was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. It seemed a little different. And it was a little different because it was the first time we were ever in person on an episode, and this episode will be the same. Obviously, I have less access to people when it comes to doing more in person, so I don't think that I will ever get rid of the option of using Skype or Zoom to be able to talk to somebody from far away. But I really like the option to be able to talk in person with people. I feel like there's just a little more quality to it. Maybe you don't notice that, maybe you don't think so, but it's my show and I think so. And so that is all that I have for you guys. Let's jump right into the episode. Now, today I have a very special guest, one of my brand new black belts. He hasn't even been a black belt for a week yet. He got it Monday. We're recording on Saturday, and now he's already a big shot. He's doing podcasts. It's really changed his life, I'm sure. But my good friend, known forever, Derek Maguire. Derek, how are you doing, buddy?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
For sure. So, congratulations on your black belt.
Thanks, man. It was a cool experience. I feel like it's been a long time, but I feel like it was the perfect kind of culmination to the jiu-jitsu transformation.
And that's kind of where I wanted to start with this, is because your black belt story, I guess there's probably no typical black belt story.
Right.
But your black belt story was definitely not typical. You started training 17 years ago. Is that correct?
You're correct. So I started, I guess I should start like at the beginning. So my dad's a black belt in Shotokan karate. And so like from like age of 4, like I was doing forms and like, I went to see Bloodsport and Roadhouse and all the Lethal Weapon movies, and like I thought I was a martial arts fighter before there was such a thing. But like any other kid, I played all the traditional sports and never really got into martial arts, but I was always interested in it. And then towards the end of high school, I played basketball through high school, and there was a gym that I knew of in town but I just assumed it was another like a karate gym. And I went in there one day on a Saturday, and they were doing like full MMA sparring with boxing gloves and shin guards, and I saw a guy named Todd Murphy do a flying armbar, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Like, what is this stuff? I got to do it. So I started briefly like in the summer of 2003, but I went to play basketball in college. So I was only able to train from like June to August. And I remember during basketball workouts and stuff, we'd be doing layup drills, and then I'd get to the pad behind the hoop, and I'd start shadow boxing and doing boxing drills. And then I was like seeking the wrestlers out at the college to roll with and stuff. And the basketball coach is like, why are you wrestling with wrestlers? You play basketball. And I'm like, yeah, maybe basketball isn't for me anymore. Yeah. Like I was spending all my free time thinking about fighting and jiu-jitsu and all that stuff. So that's kind of how it started. And then so the place I originally started at was called Pro Gym. Mike Griffin was a local guy, and it's kind of cool how everything's came full circle, because so many of those guys are now affiliated with our association one way or the other. So the Autry brothers, they were like larger than life. Like they beat the crap out of me, and I had nothing for them. A guy named CJ Fernandez fought in the UFC. Jermaine Andre, Adam Marburger, obviously, Dennis Janis. So many cool people were around in the beginning. Eric Hubner's brother-in-law Mahdi was another guy that was an original guy that kind of kept us all together, and we used to train in his basement, and so it's kind of cool. And Mike actually moved away, retired, and moved to Florida. So that was 2006-ish. I'd had 2 or 3 MMA fights training with Mike, and then did some no-gi, naga, and that kind of stuff. Mike was all no-gi, so we hadn't picked up the gi at all then. And I had seen the Vagi guys at tournaments and stuff, and I saw that, man, those guys are always winning and stuff. But I thought at that time I was pretty good at jiu-jitsu, right? I was pretty good, and so I went over there, and I'm like, oh, they'll probably make me a purple belt, within the first couple months, right? So I'll probably just skip blue belt because I already know all this stuff. And I remember, so I did a private with Rodrigo Vagi, and we rolled for the last 20 minutes. He just destroyed me. And I'm like, okay, well, he's been a black belt for a long time, so, And then he had a white belt. We call him Steve-O. And he came in and we rolled, and he destroyed me. And I'm like, okay, I suck at jiu-jitsu. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So that was so then I got really, really into the gi and into jiu-jitsu. And, it's kind of cool because I met some awesome people training there, people that I still talk to today. Another guy that is kind of still in my, I guess, on my jiu-jitsu Mount Rushmore. John Thomas, Redhead John. He was a blue belt at the time, and I think he had either just won Pan Ams or won Pan Ams shortly after I started training there. And he tapped me 20 times in a 5-minute round first time I rolled. I'm like, what is this guy doing?
And didn't make a facial expression.
No, didn't even sweat. It was just what in the world? So so it's just but that all those little interactions kind of shaped my jiu-jitsu journey, I guess, so to speak. So it's funny because John basically everything John did at blue belt is stuff I still basically do now. That's John's game is my game, only if John's doing it at a A level, I'm doing it a D plus level.
I think it's interesting because you introduced me to John. If you don't know, John is famous now in the jiu-jitsu community. Yeah. He, people at the school, they'll be like, wait, you know John? And I'm like, yeah, I've known him really well, actually. We trained like in my garage for years together.
Yeah.
And, or people will, just talk about him online. Oh, John Thomas is the best. And it's just funny because, he's still redheaded John to us, and he's still exactly who he is,
Yep. Still the same guy.
And like, as an example, like trying to get John on the podcast. I am 82 episodes in. I still can't get John on the podcast. And I have tried, and I've had him scheduled multiple times. And then, first of all, getting through the barrier of, he's in Sweden. John, what's the time zone in Sweden? I don't know. Like what? So like it doesn't have a name.
Yeah, and this is probably the smartest guy you'll ever meet. So
literally one of the smartest guys that you will ever meet. But then, doesn't know the time zone in Sweden. And so then I'm like, okay, so I figure it out. We schedule. And then I will call him on Zoom, and he's like, "Oh, dude, you're supposed to call me 2 hours ago. I'm in Norway now." And I'm like, "Wait a second, you didn't tell me that."
Right.
And so at this point, I'm just waiting for him to come back to St. Louis. Do it in person.
Just do it.
That's kind of where I'm at with it.
Wait until he doesn't have a car, and you can literally trap him in here, and you'll be good to go. Yeah. So it's another funny John story is like. When we first like were training at Rodrigo's, and like when I say we, like those guys started there way before me, and like they're much more ingrained in the Vaggie culture. Like I only trained, it was about an hour and 15 minutes from my house, so I only trained there for about 2 years. But like there's so many legendary tough guys that were in and out of that place, like Mike Rogers, Mike Ruthmeyer, Brazilian Mike, John Mankey. So those guys are like the real Vaggie guys. I wasn't like a real Vaggie guy. Like I just got beat up by him a lot. But Rodrigo was like the only Brazilian in St. Louis teaching jiu-jitsu. So he was like almost like a god, like folk hero, So, but one thing Rodrigo would always do after he'd teach a move is he would say boom. And it sounded so cool, right? So it was just like he'd be like, "Okay, guys, we're gonna do this sweep here," and then boom. And so that evolved into like the way I greet everybody I train jiu-jitsu with. And I can't say if John started it or if I started it, but it was kind of like a combination of the boom and then like when you would watch like Vanderlei Silva fight, like he would land a leg kick and all the shootbox guys would be like, "Boa!" Well, "boa" just means good, but it sounds really cool coming from a Brazilian. So like every conversation with a jiu-jitsu friend now starts with "boa." And it just means good, but it sounds really cool. So that was a credit to John for sure.
That is. I'm sure that we could go back and forth with John's stories the entire podcast, but the problem is, if we did that, people would think that we're like trying to mock John.
Right.
But we're not at all. It's just who he is. Like some of the stuff that he does is just, it's so unique to who he is. And so getting to be around him is just such a fun experience. So you're training at Vaggie's. You decide, in 2008, you decide to make a switch. You decide to be a Crianche.
Yeah, so I'm the definition of Crianche for sure. I had fought MMA in Decatur in like 2006, 2007 range, and shared a locker room with Kyle Watson. So he was going to fight Spencer Fisher. And I fought somebody much less talented than Spencer Fisher. I think he wore basketball shorts to the fight. It was an amateur fight. So I remember Kyle and I hit it off because I was in the locker room before I was about to go out, and I was chanting Natsu Gao, which is from the movie Kickboxer with Jean-Claude Van Damme. And like Kyle and Jeff Serafin and Jack McVicker were like, "Who is this kid? Like, what in the world?" So I was like 21, 22 at the time. So Kyle and I stayed in contact via MySpace. Then
top friends probably.
Oh, easy. And then we'd seen each other in passing, like at Naga's, and I think another one of his guys fought on a show that I can't remember if I was fighting or cornering somebody on or whatever, but he when the Hit Squad was going to open in Granite City, my good friend Todd Locks was going to be the manager, and Todd knew that I was a jiu-jitsu bum, and asked me if I knew of a guy that could run the jiu-jitsu program, and I suggested Kyle Watson. I said, there's a guy up in Champaign, Illinois, trained with McVickers. He's fought at a pretty high level. Kyle had just fought in Bodog, I think, and was coming up in his MMA career. And I kind of thought it'd be the perfect setup. And anybody that knows Kyle knows, like, if you get Kyle in an interview setting, he's gonna kill it. Right?
He is gonna win. He's gonna win that.
So Todd's like, well, we're gonna interview him. I'm like, okay, so Kyle's gonna be the new jiu-jitsu coach of the hit squad. So sure enough, Kyle comes down, obviously sees the hit squad, and he's like, oh my God, this place is amazing, And this was before the gym was even open. So, they hired him, and he moved down here. And so I think I was one of his first students. And, the kind of the old school way at Vagi was like, if you weren't winning like a big tournament or something as a white belt, like you were a white belt, like
forever.
Yeah, you were just. I mean, like literally, like Vagi won the white belt worlds when it was separate a couple times because their white belts were beasts. Like, I mean, they had some white belts that were just killers. So, and I wasn't not saying I was one of those guys, but like I think I had 3 stripes on my white belt when Kyle started teaching at the hit squad. So the first time Jack McVicker came around, I got my blue belt. That was like 6 months after, starting with Kyle or whatever. So I got my blue belt from Kyle, and that was probably like the prime of my jiu-jitsu career, so to speak, like 2007 to 2010, or 2008 to 2010. I was competing all the time, and I was still trying to fight MMA a little bit. That was kind of the original plan, I guess. But the more I trained jiu-jitsu, the more I like got into the culture and the just the whole experience with jiu-jitsu, and kind of separated myself from MMA. So I remember going to Pan Am's for the first time in 2008 or 2009, and like I was just blown away with like how cool it was to do jiu-jitsu. Like you got Homilo Bahal competing on the mat next to you, and freaking Crone Gracie, and like I literally watched the Pan finals of Crone was fighting on one mat and Jack McVicker was fighting on the other. I mean, the whole place was going nuts, and it was the coolest thing. I was like, man, this is what I want to do. Like, screw MMA. Like, who needs that?
Yeah. And it's just kind of the glory of it and stuff. This is actually the part of your story where I met you. I specifically remember your first class you ever did. That I think you had actually done classes before. And then because you came in really early at the hit squad and then didn't sign up for like maybe 1 or 2 more months, right?
Yeah.
And so I had started training, and at the time, and I think probably still some coaches do this, but there would be the coach would show a seminar move sometimes, and so Kyle showed some kind of like really in our mind as white belts when everyone was brand new. Just this mind-blowing technique called a star sweep.
Yeah,
not something that works, but it's something.
Back roll.
And I remember my dad wasn't even training yet at this time. But he was recovering from a hernia surgery, and we had all tried it on a Monday. You came in on a Tuesday, and no one got it right, and you did it right the first time. And I remember Kyle going, "Oh, Derek, have you done this before?" And you go, "No, it's my first time doing this move." And my mind was blown. I remember
this guy can hit a star sweep with the best of them.
Dude, I remember going up to my dad. The hit squad was all thin, like a cage on one side, and he was sitting behind the cage. And I was like, "Did you see that?" Like our minds, we were shocked. We were in awe. Like, dude, imagine what it would be like to be a 3-stripe white belt. You probably just like don't even have to pay taxes, right?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
And so, man, it's funny that like that is ingrained in my memory. My first time, and I'm like, man, we need to hang out with this guy. This guy seems to know what's going on.
Yeah, he's already got the fake Portuguese accent and all that stuff. Yeah, my favorite early memory is probably going to that Ohio Grappling Challenge and Josh's first fight. So he's
first match ever.
Yeah, he's doing nogi, and he's probably 14.
I would have been 14.
And like the first guy he's gonna fight is like literally 6'5". He definitely drove to the gym. Steve's freaking out. Like, I mean, he's like running up and down the mats, nervous wreck. I think he FaceTimed Jen maybe, and Jen's like, I mean, just like about to die.
I don't think that there was even FaceTime.
maybe
I
not
think he
FaceTime.
called her.
Called her and said, "This guy's a monster." So anyway, Josh got armbarred. And, the rest
I got armbarred like 4 times, and honestly, shouldn't have gotten out of any of them. But I was so nervous that I forgot about tapping. Yeah. And so, man, and actually, I didn't even tap. The ref stopped the match, and I was. That was definitely a stressful experience. I'm 14. I'm doing jiu-jitsu to lose weight.
Right.
And my first match is against a kid that has 3 amateur MMA wins.
Yeah.
And so, that was back in, like, there was still some tournaments that this happens in, but that was back when you had to drive 8 hours to compete. And if you're 14, you were fighting 17-year-olds. Yep. And because they just, hey, you guys are both boys, and so like you guys, and he has 40 pounds on you
weigh within 35 40 pounds of each other, so
you guys are gonna fight. And so that was a different time. I mean, now we have just in St. Louis we have 4 or 5 tournaments a year, and like the Fuji Missouri State that they'll do in June, it's huge. They'll have 1,000 competitors at it. Like, imagine we went to that Ohio tournament, drove 8 hours. I bet you there was 200 people at the most.
Yeah, remember the kids in the ninjutsu gis? The one kid asked you what your element was or something?
Asked me what they were doing katas to warm up. Yes. His coach got, he had pink hair. Yeah. If you have pink hair, that's fine. You can do, you be you.
You're definitely a badass.
Yeah, but I don't know about having pink hair. But he got choked unconscious 4 or 5 times throughout the day. He just wouldn't tap, and he was in the black belt in the advanced divisions,
right.
And he had never trained jiu-jitsu a day in his life, and he was getting choked unconscious. And they were like, the kid was telling me all about the pressure points and stuff like that he's doing. So I lose to the MMA fighter, and then I get to fight this kid, and I'm like, oh, thank God.
Right.
I really got to fight both ends of the spectrum
for sure
that day.
Yeah, that was the cool thing back then. I mean, and like those guys in Ohio, they had a really good association going even back then with George Riddell and like Dustin Ware, and those guys were animals. Like a huge network of schools, and I think Rich Franklin trained there for a time, and it was they put on some good tournaments back then they always did like the super fights. I think Kyle had a super fight maybe.
Yes, it would have been an 8-man division. That was my first time ever seeing a black belt.
Yeah.
It would have been James Klingerman was in there, and we're just like, man, this guy's a black belt, and I believe he lost to John Stutzman. I know John Stutzman beat a black belt, and he was a purple belt at the time.
Klingerman lost to that guy that had a school like in Cleveland or northern Tennessee. He got footlocked, and I think that guy was like a purple or brown belt.
Yeah, that would have been. I think that would have been Stutzman.
Okay, gotcha.
And so, but I remember that really rocked my world. You have a purple belt submitting a black belt,
right?
And you're just like, no, black belts can't lose.
Black belts,
everything that I know is a lie.
Right.
That was a really interesting. That was just an interesting experience. That was a great first jiu-jitsu experience at 14 years old. It was a really good. It's fun to get to take people to their first like jiu-jitsu. We flew to Dallas, and we had people that have competed. Like locally, but they've never traveled to compete.
Right.
And I could just see like the excitement when they walked in for an IBJJF. It was American Nationals. American Nationals was huge last year. COVID everywhere.
Right.
And
super spreader event.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And there's I think there's 12, 14 mats or something like that. I'm fighting like top 10 black belts, and they're just, this is the craziest.
Right.
I've never experienced anything like this.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, everybody kind of has that, experience when they're coming up. Like Kyle and I went to Brazil in 2009, and so Kyle and Jack both fought in what is now the Master Worlds. It used to be they did in Rio. They did the one day was the Rio Open, and then the rest was the Master Senior World Championship. So there used to be a senior division. Now everything's just Master. So it was really cool. Like we trained at Humaita for a week, and then competed that weekend, and then trained another week. So, but I fought as an adult. So I won my first match, and then I fought. This is a blue belt, and I fought Marcus Vinicius Tinoco in the second match. It was really close. I think he submitted me in like 45 seconds. So. Our jiu-jitsu careers since then have taken different paths, but
Slightly.
yeah. But after that, like I was like Kyle's towel boy, like holding the clock for him, and just because Jack was competing, so Kyle didn't have a coach. So I just followed Kyle around, and Kyle like had he had killed it that weekend. Like he had really had been working on his wrestling, and he was a brown belt at the time, and I think he got first or second in his weight, and then did the same, made the finals in the absolute also. And in the absolute final, I just remember he fought this guy they called Giganchi, because the guy was like 6'6", like 300 pounds, and Kyle did really well with him, but it was just like it was David versus Goliath literally. So but that was like my kind of like jiu-jitsu moment where I'm like, man, like this is awesome. This sport is really cool. So
this could be something. And so at that time, was your goal world champion? Was it school owner? What was the goal?
Yes. So I kind of got to. I was fortunate to like see a lot of different academies and different setups and stuff, and like John Thomas, and I'm kind of talking in circles here, but John Thomas moved from St. Louis to Atlanta to train with Cobrinha at Alliance. So like around that same time, like probably before I went to Brazil, I went down to Alliance 2 different times and got to train with John and Cobrinha and Jacare, and I mean so many Ian what's the guy that I can't think of his name now. The guy. The really good black belt. It's got really good footlock, short, stocky black guy.
Sure. Oh, Alec.
Yeah, Alec Baldwin. Yeah. So I got to train with him and all these, just like tough guys. But Alliance was like just a cool setup because it was totally jiu-jitsu. Like there was no MMA program. Like it was, they trained. They had class at 7 a.m. Then they had class at noon, and then they had class at night. And like, I mean, they had like people were moving from all over the country to train there at the time because Cobrinha was the man. I mean, Cobrinha
was unbeatable at that time.
Unbeatable. I don't think he had his guard passed in competition. Just insane. So that was like my okay, like I can if I can just get to XYZ, I'll move down to Alliance and train. Like John had a little different financial backing than I did. Yeah. So I wasn't able to pull it off like he was as quick, but that was kind of the goal. Like, okay, I'll move down here, train full time, and then maybe we'll see what happens. But it's funny because had like Uber been a thing then, like there's so many more opportunities now to like make side money that like I probably could have made it happen. But I was already working full time, and so like the thought of like going from a decent paying job to not working was like, this is pretty risky.
Especially, there was no money in jiu-jitsu at the time. There really was none. There was, maybe you were a school owner and you could pay bills. You didn't have to work a second job, but that was the pinnacle.
Right. Yeah, those guys were rare. So then I kept training, and kind of working towards that goal. I did the Pan Ams a couple times. It didn't quite do. I never got over the hump, I guess, per se, and it's funny because so many people like that I was kind of had the same plan as me, made it like Tyler and Jenna Bishop, like they were good friends of mine, and like we talked about these goals, and like I was I'd go over and train with those guys at JW's, and that was their goal, and they made it. So it's props to them. So like people like them and you and John Thomas and stuff that have kind of succeeded in jiu-jitsu, it's really cool to see. And so in 2010, my son was born, and so that caused me to have to grow up. The time spent being a jiu-jitsu bum got less and less, and I had to pick up overtime shifts and do things like that. So I kind of took a different journey or different route at that point. Jiu-jitsu never left. Like it was always there. I'd come over to the Madison garage, and but it's funny because when I left, I was a purple belt, and I was still beating everybody, so it was okay, I can take a little break,
and I'll be able to come back,
I'll be fine. And then slowly, you and I would roll once a month or once every 2 months, and slowly you started beating me. I remember the first time, I think we rolled and it was a stalemate. And it was in the Madison garage. I'm like, man, Josh has gotten pretty good now. This is not as easy as it used to be.
That was interesting. That was right at the time that I was introduced to John, that he and I was 16, 17 years old, skipping school, training 6 hours a day, drilling with John.
Right.
And so, like, obviously you're just being on the mat that long, your jiu-jitsu is going to improve.
Yeah, and I was eating donuts, sitting in a police car. So I mean, it was a little different training. Yeah, so from 2010 to 2015, my jiu-jitsu was like very sporadic. I think I probably went to Kyle's once Kyle opened up downtown. I probably went there 5 times. I remember if a guy was like fighting, like a local guy was gonna fight jiu-jitsu or MMA, like Eric Hubner when he picked it up, like I trained him, quote unquote, for his first fight, taught him some basics and stuff, and then the same with Adam Marburger when he picked up the gi. He reached out to me and wanted to start training. So that was probably around that 2010 to 2012 timeframe. But I didn't train consistently during that time at all. Like it just real sporadic. I didn't have a home gym or anything like that. And then 2015, I transferred work to Kansas City, and I knew like my first priority, other than finding a decent school district for my kid, was okay, what's the best school district that has a jiu-jitsu gym in that school district? So my ex-wife at the time my wife at the time probably didn't know what I was doing, but I'm like, hey, there's these 7 houses, we got to look at all them. And my hidden agenda there was they're all within 5-minute drive of the jiu-jitsu gym. So I knew going in where I wanted to train. I had done my research and done my homework, and just happened to be that Leandro Pisagna had an affiliate school right in the area that we were going to live. So
it's crazy how that stuff works out. Sometimes it all just falls into place.
Everything fell into place. So now I've got my office. And then my jiu-jitsu gym are within 5 minutes of where I live. So it's like, okay, you got no excuses here, bro. Like, get back on the mat. So I was a purple belt at the time still. So from like 2010 to 2015, I was a purple belt. And signed up it's called Brazil Academy. Ninja Pinto is the head coach. He's a black belt under Leo Pisagna. And it's like, I remember the first class I went to, and I had talked to Ninja on email and whatnot, and he was like, okay, man, you want to sign up for a month or whatever? I said, no, I'm going to pay for the year. So I paid up front for the year. I'm like, make myself, a commitment. So I did. So I paid for the year, and like, living that close, I was there all the time. Like 4 or 5 days a week, like I was training, and made so many good friends, like so many cool guys that I still keep in touch with. 2 of them are black belts now. Also, they were purple belts when we started together, and they're black belts now. So it was cool to see that place evolve into like a huge academy. I mean, they're killing it now. Like they've doubled mat space, and it was a really cool place to train. And it was kind of cool for me because that was the first Brazilian I had trained under since 2006, training with Vagi. So it was like, Ninja's mom, Ninja was born in Brazil. So like, I mean, his whole family's Brazil. His mom runs a Brazilian cafe out of the gym. So like, I was really kind of ingratiated in the Brazilian culture again. Like I got to, get pão de queijo and, stroganoff and all the Brazilian food that I had, kind of come to like in Brazil. So it was really good to train there for 4 years consistently, training hard. Ninja gave me my brown belt in like 2016, he wanted me to compete. He definitely pushed his competition, but he wasn't like forcing me to compete. And like, I always told him like, hey, if I could just train consistently, like I feel like I'll know when I'm ready. But like, my job just never. It just never allowed me to get to like where I was like, okay, I'm ready. So, it is what it is. I wasn't able to compete at brown belt like I would have liked. I would have loved to do, like Pan Ams or, nationals or something like that. But, like everything happens for a reason, and, it is what it is. While I was training there, I got certified as an IBJJF ref. So that was really cool to see, kind of learn the other side of it. Because if anybody's ever been to a competition with me, I'm pretty harsh on the refs.
Most people are.
So that was cool to see, and I have nothing but good memories of my time in Kansas City training with those guys. Man, they were really cool, and it's cool now because like you've now become friends with Ninja.
So, yeah, I coached him at Cincinnati Open. And it's funny how that works. I think that was kind of the segue in, was like, hey, my buddy Derek trains with you. We met at a Brian Stubner holds PANS camps every year, and it's kind of the middle of the road between St. Louis and Kansas City.
Yeah.
And so we went down and we were training at this PANS camp, and I meet Ninja. Ninja's 130 maybe,
yeah.
And I am just starting transitioning from middleweight to medium heavy. And it was a lot of white and blue belts. I was a brown belt at the time. I was a pretty good competitive brown belt, and Ninja was bringing it to me. And I was like, I like this guy. This guy's a good dude, And so it's weird. You respect some people for it, because he could have easily been like, I'm going to avoid this guy that's 50 pounds heavier than that I don't know. But he was like, every chance that we got to roll, he was coming up. I loved to. He's going to be on the podcast eventually. We talked at American Nationals. I'm going to have him on. But one of my favorite parts was he was the most interested in what Kyle taught. Mm-hmm. He was the most interested and asked by far the most questions about one of the smash passes that he was showing. And it was like, we had to work on it. Everyone worked on it for like 35 minutes because Ninja had another question, another question. I'm like, this guy, he loves jiu-jitsu. He's not. He does not have a big ego. He was a really fun guy to be around.
Yeah, he definitely has that like grind. I mean, like he goes hard. There's one speed with him, and it's go. Mm-hmm. But man, like that guy works harder at jiu-jitsu than anybody I've ever seen in terms of like, I mean, he's there. I think now he's got it down to where he's only there in the morning, like 6 a.m., like 3 days a week. But he teaches a 6 a.m. class, a noon class, and then night class every day.
Oh my gosh!
Like, I mean, and then he's got his mom's running a restaurant out of the gym that he's doing all that stuff, and he's like one of the highest ranking capoeira guys in the U.S. So he's got a whole capoeira program on top of the jiu-jitsu program, and like he's always doing like fun things. Like he does a jiu-jitsu Halloween party for all the kids, like the kids program, and like he dresses up and like he's Spider-Man every year because he can do all the flips and all that stuff. But yeah, man, like what a cool guy. I think he came to America in high school as a foreign exchange student. His brother is a professional soccer player, and just an awesome dude. Really thankful that we crossed paths and I was able to train with those guys. I remember it's funny because there's like these weird little like moments in your jiu-jitsu career that you always remember. And so for me, it's not like winning anything. I never experienced that, but it's just like, it's more about like the different relationships I made. So like, a new brown belt moved there from Texas. And his name's Matt, and Ninja sent us all the brown belts an email. It was like, hey, there was a new brown belt in class and none of you guys were here. And he's like wanting to know where the brown belts are. So Matt became like one of my best friends. So Matt and another guy, Val, they're both black belts now that train there. We've had a group text going since Matt started there, and it's like, like I can't imagine like so many funny stories with those three. Like I can't imagine where my jiu-jitsu transformation would be had it not been for those relationships. So.
That is cool. So then you come back to St. Louis, well, actually to the other side, to Illinois, where we're at. You decide, what, Head Nod HQ is the place for my jiu-jitsu development. What was your first? Because I mean, you had never really trained with us, right? Yeah, maybe once or twice.
Yeah, I think I hopped in like on a Thanksgiving or over Thanksgiving a couple times or something. Yeah, I remember like because one of those times Brandon was still training.
Okay. And that would have been forever ago.
Yeah, and because Brandon tried to rip my head off at the old gym, like one, like when he was actually in shape training, and like I came in on a Saturday, like He tried to rip my head off one time. That's my half brother Brandon,
who's also my best friend. So we've always kind of had that connection too.
So Brandon tried to kill me at the old gym.
As any brother should.
Yeah. But yeah, so when I came back, like it was no doubt where I was going to train if I'm going to live in Illinois. Like I'm going to train with Josh and Steve. Like I had no idea how good Josh had gotten. Like, I obviously followed the competition and stuff, and I was like, but like, it's hard for me because like in my mind, Josh is still this chubby Asian 14-year-old kid that like, I used to choke unconscious and laugh at. Like, So like when I get beat by Josh now, it's like, man, like how does this happen? And so it's still cool. It shows, like the evolution of jiu-jitsu and like how hard work on the mat, pays off. So yeah, there was no doubt on where I was going to train. I think so I moved back in like September of 2019. And I signed up pretty quick there. Mm-hmm. Now I don't remember exactly when the move to here happened.
I couldn't tell you.
You don't know exactly either.
Yeah, to the new space.
Yeah, new location.
Oh, new space. I thought you were talking about your move. I was like, dude, I don't know.
Why would you know?
Yeah. So we moved to the new space February 22nd of last year.
Of 20. Okay.
Yeah, of 20.
Yeah, so I really only trained at the old gym for 4 or 5 months. Probably 20 times. But it was kind of cool, like with my job when COVID hit. We went basically full remote at first. So, thankfully the regulations in Granite City didn't prohibit us from training.
Technically, they did.
Technically,
we were closed for. Actually, we're still closed.
Okay.
I don't know if you know this, but we haven't trained jiu-jitsu in a year.
Okay, so the gym was closed, but I was fortunate to get some extra training in on the side, and so like I guess April, May, June, like, I was here like 4 or 5 days a week. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was awesome. Like, I was like, okay, man, like I'm finally getting back into it. I don't have all these other life distractions that we all have. And, okay, I can train jiu-jitsu like I want. And, of course, the world slowly started to open back up and, mm-hmm. Work got busy and life distractions picked back up. And, it slowed my training down. But, I guess the coolest thing one of the coolest things I've learned from this whole jiu-jitsu journey is like, like my son's only going to be a little kid for a short amount of time. And like being dad is like, you can't replace that. Like, mm-hmm. So I want him to remember like me being there, at his basketball games and, picking him up from school and, just being dad more than I want him to remember that dad was always training, mm-hmm. Because, I'm 36. Jiu-jitsu is going to be here for another 30, 40 years, I hope. Mm-hmm. So, my longest belt by far is going to be black belt. So like, who cares if I suck? like I'm going to train today and Richie's probably going to tap me out. And Richie's a blue belt, but who cares? Like nobody outside of this gym even knows what that means.
Mm-hmm. And also we keep Richie a secret.
Yeah.
We act like he's not good and then he wins tournaments. We're like, yeah, all our blue belts are like that. Yep.
Right. So, like I guess, like I didn't go the route, that I wanted to go when when this whole thing started. I didn't win medals. I didn't, but I got to, experience some really awesome people and, I feel like, I'm a jiu-jitsu lifer, whereas like somebody that like wins everything and, like just is a stud, they might disappear. So, it's just, it's kind of different, like, I hope to go back to Brazil, a lot and, really kind of just experience the, the whole culture with jiu-jitsu. I would say I'm probably like level 1 fluent in Portuguese.
All right.
Yeah, fala português pouquinho. And that's like, for me, Portuguese just sounds awesome.
Oh yeah.
Like it's not even like that Brazilians are even saying anything like profound. Like anybody that's ever gone to a tournament, like they're like, they'll say something like "isso aí," and that literally means this, yes. But it sounds awesome. Or like "no para, no para, no para." That just means don't stop. But it sounds really, really cool when you hear it from a Brazilian. And so like I just like I'm more into like the whole jiu-jitsu life. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it'll ever leave. It'll always be here.
I think, man, that's such a beautiful thing because a lot of people would have fallen off with I wanted to be a world champion and I am not. And so that was my goal of jiu-jitsu. But jiu-jitsu allows you to accomplish so many different things and allows you to get to so many different even if they're not financial places, even if they're not winning a world title, even if it's just man, I get to have camaraderie with a group of guys and girls, and we try to kill each other, and it's just this joy that I get from it. It's really one of my favorite things. And back to what you said about just being there for your son. I mean, that is, it's not something that I ever noted when I was a kid. I didn't notice like, hey, most of the kids, when we play basketball and I'm the worst player on the team, most of the kids, their dad isn't there.
Right.
And the dads that are just verbally abusing their kids. I didn't register, my dad is here and he is happy if that I'm just playing, and he's happy that I'm with all through jiu-jitsu, that's why he started, was because he had trained before, but he started training consistently when I started training. And man, that was such a that is such a big thing that has shaped me in the way that that I am, is because my dad was there, and he said, hey, I'm just gonna, I decided I wanted to have a kid, and I'm going to sell out. And it was the same way with my brother. He just always was there.
Yeah, for
and we call it when it comes to like, there's a show, New Girl, and they're all going over pickup lines and and things. And one of the guys goes, well, I do the Joe Biden. And this was when Joe Biden was vice president. He's like, well, what's that? He goes, I'm just always there. He goes, I don't always do anything.
Right.
He goes, she goes to the bathroom. When she comes out, I'm there. She goes to get punched, I'm there. And they're like, that's not a bad thing. My dad did the Joe Biden. He was just always there for me as a kid.
Yeah.
That really helps, man.
It does. It just like, you always have that. And my dad was awesome. Like he, same way. Like he gave up basically all his hobbies and, his life for me and my brother Dustin. And like, kind of was like that's like the ultimate lesson I guess I got from my childhood was like, my parents got divorced when I was young and all that stuff. But like, no matter what sport I was playing or what school event or, whatever, my dad was always there. And, so I want to give that same thing to my son, Kyron. And it's kind of cool because like he's playing, he's playing basketball now at a pretty high level. And I go to these tournaments and like, I see the way, parents or coaches talk to kids, and I'm like, and I'm guilty of it sometimes too, but I remember jiu-jitsu and like how I learned, and like, you're at a jiu-jitsu tournament, like it's pretty intense, and like, but like, like you watch Kyle, like Kyle will always take his students aside and be like, hey man, like, just look for this, and this. He's not like screaming, he's not like, and it's just like, you learn these lessons in jiu-jitsu that apply to everything. I know we always say that. It sounds,
but it's true. Yeah. And people, man, the people that listen to this show aren't people that are needing to be convinced of jiu-jitsu. They always are like, they're like, yeah, these guys are right. This is what we deal with. I know. I actually had. It won't come out. It hasn't come out yet, but it'll come out before this episode comes out. I did a solo podcast. I was talking about understanding that there is a difference between a teacher and a coach. Yep. And some people are great teachers, some people are great coaches. Not that Kyle wasn't a great teacher, but Kyle was a phenomenal coach.
Yeah,
always has been.
Yep.
Always a coach. He has always convinced me to execute. He's always made sure I was taken care of. Yeah. And you have to be able to trust your coach, man.
Sure.
And that's like never had a problem trusting Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle's the first person I ever heard like come up like tell you to like, okay, you got to have a game plan. Like
yeah, like
you're not just gonna go into this match and do jiu-jitsu. Like there's way more to it than that. Mm-hmm. Like if you come in with a strategic game plan, then when it doesn't go right, you still have your base set of like, okay, from this from closed guard I've got these 3 sweeps or whatever. And like Kyle, like I just that's one of the main lessons I got from him that I still kind of keep in my mind.
Is just even in training, you get to have that, man, if you have a game plan in training, it is so much better than if you say, I am just going to win. That's what I always ask the guys when they're struggling, I'm struggling with, my guard is getting passed. And I say, well, what are you trying to do from guard? And then they'll throw out 5 random thoughts. Like, no.
Yeah.
You need to be specific.
Right.
You need to have, how are you just playing guard? Like, it doesn't. You can play that at a very high level. You can switch between grips and not have to think about it.
Yeah.
But not at a low level.
No,
you just can't do it.
No. Yeah. It's like with my own personal just there's we kind of laugh about it on the mat sometimes, but like there's like 4 positions where like I'm really really comfortable, and like so like if I'm rolling with like a blue belt or something, or a newer blue belt or newer white belt or something, and I'll when I get in that position, I'll be like, no, I'm only a black belt at like 4 moves, but I'm about to hit one of them on you, and like 99% of the time it works, but it's only because like those are like my game plan. So like, I get closed guard, like I'm grip break, arm drag, and you're getting swept. And it's just, it's just is what it is.
The we call it, I don't know what other people call it. Like you would call it like the entry into Berimbolo. We always call it the dump sweep from De La Riva. One day we were all sitting around talking. One of the guys like, man, I really like that we got that brown belt. Derek's really good. One of the guys goes, yeah, man, he hit that dump sweep on me. And then everybody, every time he gets me there, he dump sweeps me. And Rich is like, he's been hitting me with that for months, and like everybody was like, he's so good at that one thing.
Yeah, that was like, John started doing that like when the Mendez brothers first came on the scene, like 2008, and like
before there was instructions, because he would watch tape.
Yeah, John can break down film, better than anybody. Mm-hmm. And like, I remember like he before the Berimbolo, he was like, just cross sleeve and, get a deep grip with the offhand and just hit that dump sweep. And you were the first one to show me kind of adding in the far foot, because I think John originally was putting the foot on the mat. And then you were putting the foot across the hip line at one point. So I still teach that to the guys. That still works so well. The evolution of kind of the Berimbolo, started with that. So and like I never really went past step A, I guess. You won't see me probably spin underneath very often. I tried to do it to Eric the other night, and it just doesn't work. For me.
He's not the guy. He was just he's on 2 episodes ago. We've talked about his mammoth size and in incredible speed for that size. You can't be cute with anything that you do with him.
No, you're gonna get smashed.
I'll find one move that works on him, and it'll work for me for 2 months, and then I got to find another. And that the number of moves that has been working is just it's going down and down.
Yeah, there's some really, really cool matchups that could happen with Eric at the black belt level.
I totally agree. I really think that he would be the potential to shock the world in jiu-jitsu. He really does, because as a competitor, he is a phenomenal competitor, phenomenal performer, and then his ability to dictate where the match takes place.
Right.
I don't think that if he was pulling guard that he would beat a lot of these really high-level ultra heavies.
Probably not.
But I also don't think that they're taking him down.
Yeah, I mean the odds of scoring on Eric in a jiu-jitsu match are pretty slim anyway. And then, he's probably going to get 2 points on you. So now you're down 2-0, and good luck getting that guy off you, man.
Yeah, man. And he is just, when you talk about people that have always been coached and they have the ability to take coaching, he is one of those people that if I need to, like, if I say, hey, I need you to do, whether we're on the mat and I say, hey, I need you to hit 1,000 arm bars live in training over the next 2 months, he won't question it. He'll just, I'll do it. And, just ability to be coached is just like, that is it's a nice thing with some guys. Some guys don't, like for me, I don't need to be coached. I'm somebody that tries to figure things out and actually don't do as well being directly coached like that. I like to figure things out on my own. And so, but it's nice to have guys that can just flip the switch and they can be coached.
For sure. And like, I know he talked about his transformation and whatnot, but like, I know Eric, we went to high school together, and like, he was a couple years younger than me, but like, he was like a 170, 160, I don't know the weight classes, but he was a freaking beast. Like, I mean, he had like a V back, like when, he's like a sophomore, like 15, 16 years old, and like, ripped out of his mind, and like, was a stud wrestler, and, beating everybody. And then when he fought MMA, he fought 170 pounds. And like, I was training him, and I'm like, he didn't know any jiu-jitsu, but like he could get out of basically anything I put him in, and like, of course I was doing the like, okay, yeah, that was good, but let's, cause I didn't want to get beat up. So like I was coaching as much as I was rolling with him. But now, like, I mean, he's still just as fast, just as athletic, but he's a monster.
Yeah.
And so, like, most of those guys that he's gonna fight or has fought are not. They've been big their whole life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're not. They don't move that way. And the way, you know, like if you watch him sprawl, how fast he sprawls, or you know the way he just gets his game, you know, or just, you know, forces you into his game. Man, it's gonna be cool to see some of the bigger guys try and line up against him.
I totally agree. I really, and this is maybe I'm just being an excited coach, and I'm a liar, but I really do think that we have a few guys at the gym that could really in the future make a lot of noise in the jiu-jitsu community. Really, the competitive community. I think we have some guys that are just special and could really do well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, just to come full circle, it's like, you know, that goal of, you know, like me moving down to Alliance, and like they were training 3 times a day and like all this crazy stuff, and like, man, that's the place to be. And it's like you guys created that here in Granite City, Illinois, and like, you know, like if you want to be a competitor, like, and you're within, you know, a 5-hour radius of St. Louis, like there is no better place to come train. Like, you know, you guys have got like the coolest like network, you know, like you have unified jiu-jitsu in St. Louis, which, you know, like like 15 years ago, that wasn't possible. Like everybody was either, you know, Gym A, Gym B, or Gym C, and there was no crossover. And now like everybody trains together for the most part, and like, you know, you got, you know, I think 2 days a week, all the black belts get together and train, and like, you know, just bounce ideas off you and off each other. And like, you know, guys are winning like big competitions. Like Nick Sanders is going and fighting like, you know, monsters.
Second at Master Worlds, you know, and like and beat the #1 ranked master competitor at his age group. Man, that is it really is something special. And I remember, you know, I know everybody had the dream. I remember the Bishops. They wanted to move to where they moved, you know, and Nick Schrock also, he moved to where, you know, he moved to San Diego, and you know, these guys wanted to train at the big gyms. And I remember always, even as a blue belt, my goal was never to do that. My goal was always to say, well, why is that special?
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the Russell Wilson quote of "Why not us?" You know,
Right.
like why couldn't we just do that here?
Yeah.
And it's funny how those things they come about. It was those little relationships. You introducing me to Adam Marburger, who's a nut.
Yeah,
And he would, in the whole black belts all training together,
Yeah.
it really came from he and I were running a business together. We're trying to just get more training.
Yeah.
And he had, you know, Adam is a bit of a salesman.
Yeah, a little
You
bit.
know,
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that he was being not truthful, but he was selling guys. And he would talk to Ezra Lennon, and he would say, Ezra, you got to come train with us. We've got 4 black belts that are all training on Thursday mornings. We had no black belts. Well, then he would message 4 black belts,
Yeah.
and he'll say, hey, Ezra is going to be training on Thursday morning. You need to be in. And so all these guys are like, oh, everyone else is doing it, so we should all start training. So that's how we met. That's how this whole group of black belts all, and then Kyle like was one day like, hey, you know, I have open mat on Mondays and Wednesdays. Why don't you guys just come to that? And so, you know, that's how it all really came
Right.
about, was Adam selling them. You know, he was hitting them with the oh yeah, we've all been training together, yeah, and you know, like they all showed up on the same day and they all believed the lie.
Yeah. For just to make a Tommy Boy reference, like for anybody familiar with the old Chris Farley movies, like Adam is the Big Tom Callahan of the Midwest. Like he could literally sell a cherry popsicle to somebody in white gloves.
He
like,
really could.
There's no better talker than that guy.
I totally agree. All right, Derek, we're getting to the end. I know you listen to the show. We always finish with the same question, but before we get to that, I want to just get, you know, we got all the way to your story. You started training here. You're still a brown belt. This Monday, you get your black belt. Can you just share what that experience was like?
Yeah, it was awesome, man. It was really cool. I mean, you know, obviously there's, you know, because I've been to so many different academies and made so many relationships. There's a ton of people that like I would have loved to have had there. like just got friends that I've made in jiu-jitsu, like Dennis Janis and I started together, and like he just happened to be in New Orleans last weekend. So like it's just like guys like that. And my buddy Steven is a blue belt under Kyle now. He had kidney stones, so so he wasn't able to be there. My brother Brandon, just like but it was awesome. And it's like I feel like these people are people I'm going to train with going forward. So it's like it was just a cool experience to do it with Steve and Josh and Kyle, the guys that I kind of at least my gi most of my gi train has been with. So really just an awesome experience. And and then to do it with Eric was cool because like I said, we had started together and like did the whole MMA thing. And so yeah,
that honestly, that's I had multiple people message me after, people that didn't even get promoted, not like they were like, oh, I got promoted and that's why I'm excited. Multiple people messaged me after. We had just a huge belt ceremony. We did it head nod style, not professional, not anything. We have 5 black belts there, and I am calling up. We have like 15 blue belts. I'm just naming blue belts and throwing the belts to other black belts, that are, and they're wrapping them around people. And it was really cool experience. But multiple people tell me like, man, that was one of the coolest things I've ever gotten to experience was you and Eric getting your black belts. Because I think, it was special. It wasn't the first black belt that we had. Justin Hoff was the first black belt we had here, but it was the fact that you started under Kyle and you were able to have him wrap the black belt around you, and so did Eric. At least he started under John Mankey, but I believe he got his blue belt, purple belt from Kyle, and then brown and black under me. And it was just like we keep saying full circle. It was just such a cool full circle experience.
Yeah. I mean, all and then like just to tie it all together, Nick, ended up taking over the program at the Hit Squad after Kyle, and so Nick's got all his guys there that he's promoting to blue belt and or blue and purple, I think. So yeah, it's just I mean, as close to perfect as it could be, it was.
I totally agree.
It's been a crazy 2 years for me and for most of the world. But I'm really excited about the future and kind of now earning my belt. So
that was a cool experience. All right, so on the show we always finish before we get to that. I'm really the episode's been really great so far. Really want to definitely have you come back again. If you'd be willing, but we still have to finish the same way we finish every episode. The scenario is we're at a Derek Maguire seminar. You're teaching, I'm sure you just taught hip bump, Kimura, guillotine, and then went into dump sweep from De La Hiva. I am, let's say I'm a blue belt, and I raise my hand and I say, Derek, I suck at jiu-jitsu. How do I suck less at jiu-jitsu?
Well, so, for me, the first thing is like I said, like, who cares if you suck? Keep training. Like, it doesn't matter. Nobody outside of the gym knows the difference between whether you're, a world champion or, you get tapped every day by white belts. So, but it really comes down to just your mindset when you come train. Like, are you focused? Do you have a game plan? And, are you doing all the right things outside of jiu-jitsu? So, like, you're not going to get good at jiu-jitsu coming to class, 3 times a week and training for an hour and just going home. Like, are you watching competition videos? Are you really like embracing the whole jiu-jitsu lifestyle? And there's phenoms, there's exceptions to that, but like, the more you study and do you have a Flow Grappling membership? Are you watching all the high level guys, or are you just learning 3 moves in class and then like trying to apply them and not having success? So but yeah, just enjoy the journey, man. Enjoy the transformation that comes with jiu-jitsu, and don't worry about the belt on your waist or how many times you get tapped or how many times your guard passes, because it doesn't matter. It's about the whole experience and just the relationships you make, and just really the entire kind of jiu-jitsu lifestyle, more than it is just like, okay, I'm the best in class tonight. Who cares, man?
Excellent answer. Derek, thank you again for being on the show, man. This was really a great conversation.
Boa, man, thanks.
And that is the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. If you guys like the content that we put out on the show and just through anything, I think you guys will really love my ebook. My ebook is Simplifying Jiu-Jitsu. It is available at simplifyingjiu-jitsu.com. What we do is we take the 5 essential positions of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and we simplify them. We make them easier to understand in a sense of training. This is not a technique book. This is a book that explains to you how you should be training, what you should be training, and why you are doing it in a specific order. And so if you guys like that content, be sure to get that free ebook. It is free. It will always be free, but eventually I'll write a new one and maybe you guys will have less access to the original. And so be sure to get it while you can. And that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys really enjoyed today's episode. Thank you again, Derek, for being on the show. Hope you guys enjoyed getting to hear his unique story and kind of his perseverance on jiu-jitsu and in jiu-jitsu. And I hope you guys enjoyed all the content that we put out, and I hope that it helps you suck just a little bit less at jiu-jitsu.